Well, thank you for those who spoke up. This is being your first time here with Race Talk with Lane and Eugene. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to speak, welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to get right into this. So we have a beautiful speaker today who's going to be talking to us about how we can get involved. But let me give you a little bit of background about the Dr. Felicia Williams Cosey. For 20 years, Dr. Felicia Williams Cosey has inspired business organizations, leaders, and individuals to go beyond the ordinary to achieve successful business relationships. Felicia is a Michigan native and a graduate of Michigan State University. She developed her organizational change management expertise while building a career as a university professor. She taught and consulted at the Simon Bolivar University in Caracas, Venezuela, the School of Business at Boston College, and the psychology department at the School of Engineering at Wayne State University. And currently, Dr. Williams Cosey facilitates a course on interpersonal dynamics at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Focusing on organizational effectiveness, team building, and organizational restructuring following radical organizational change, she developed an acute skill for balancing the needs of the organizational system with the quote unquote people needs of her clients. Dr. Williams Cosey is also an experienced organizational process consultant. He works with companies in the private, public, academic, and nonprofit sectors. She specializes in organizational transformation that integrates business imperatives with human competencies. She is attentive to leadership styles, technology issues, and work process requirements. Dr. Williams Cosey specializes in change management, including team building, crisis management, communication, and multicultural diversity training, and in-meeting and retreat facilitation. Her expertise in executive coaching and leadership development make her uniquely qualified to help clients chart goal, develop communication skills, and seek integrity in leadership and establish short and long-term development plans. Companies who have worked with Dr. Felicia Williams Cosey have experienced improved communications between departments, increased cooperation in alignment with business goals, greater valuing and application of multicultural contributions to business success, increased individual and team performance, and more efficient utilization of human resources. And that's just a little bit. So it is my honor and it is my pleasure to introduce to Race Talk today, Dr. Felicia Williams Cosey. Yay!
Thank you. Wow, as you were reading all of that, I kind of got tired. Have I really done all of that? So it is totally my pleasure to be here. And while I appreciate the bio and had no idea you're going to read the whole thing, Eugene.
Well, what can I say?
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And in the organization that I work with, we have an exercise that's called If You Really Knew Me. And so I'd like to give you a context of why the topic today and why it's important to me. So if you really knew me, you'd know that at 8 years old, I was identified as talented and gifted and sent from my all-Black neighborhood to an all-white school. Unfortunately, back before there was busing, I walked through my all-Black neighborhood, through the all-white neighborhood, to the all-white school. There were no bridges for me between what other people saw as two completely separate worlds. When I was in middle school, the elementary schools came together. And the Black students were over here and the white students were over there. And because I was identified as academically whatever, I was always with all the white students. And so I wasn't accepted by the Black students and I wasn't accepted by the white students. And I wished there had been a bridge. When I got to college, I had an opportunity to, in my career, go into diversity work. And I consciously chose not to do that because I was not going to be the Black person doing the diversity work. So I went into a career that at that time was all white male. And I wished there had been a bridge, but there wasn't. I was the first African American and the first woman to get a PhD in that program. And the two African American people who had tried before dropped out, and people made it very clear to me, there's only been two before you and they didn't make it. And the one other woman got left without finishing. I wished there had been a bridge. I left, after I finished my career, I moved to Venezuela. Now, the good news is in Venezuela, I didn't expect there to be a bridge. I knew I was an American in a foreign country, and I learned to speak Spanish well enough that people asked me what part of the country I was from. So I didn't need a bridge. I spoke both languages. And I began to realize that in life, we need to build bridges. For what people consider to be opposites, differences, separation, we need to build bridges. So that's why I'm here, that's why what I'm about, and I wanted to give a little bit of context for our discussion today by talking about what it is to have courageous conversation. How do we do that? And to challenge each of us to look at what kind of bridge builder are you? My guess is many of us are already building bridges and we just haven't called it that. And hopefully, as we discuss today, you'll hear from somebody else and think, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I can do that too. Or I'm already doing that and now I have a context for it. So with that in mind, I want to share a presentation, a really brief one that just gives some context to what it is we want to talk about today. Okay, so we're talking about building bridges for courageous conversations. And I like this sign, bridge ahead, you built it. So very briefly, I want to talk about what it takes to build a bridge, what are some of the things that give support to the bridge, and to have you notice what is your role in being a bridge, whether it's a bridge across racial differences, sexual orientation differences, political differences, spiritual differences. How can we all be bridge builders? So I want to talk about what gets in the way. And typically what goes on in our mind, if I speak up, if I try to do something nobody else has done, or try to bridge between, quote, languages that different people speak, I'll hurt or I'll embarrass myself or I'll embarrass somebody else. I'll damage the relationship. And this is the big one. I don't want to talk to somebody who is of a different race or ethnicity because I might say it wrong. I might put my foot in my mouth. I might make things worse. I might be misunderstood. I'll disrupt the group harmony. Okay, if everybody's going along in this direction and I'm the one to say, hey, that was a microaggression. I have an ouch or an oops about this. This doesn't feel good to me. and everybody else is making nice, I'll be the one that'll disrupt the harmony of the group. Or I'll start a tit for tat cycle. Well, if you tell me about your pain, I'll tell you about my pain, and then we'll compare whose pain is bigger pain, and nothing ever gets done. Or if I confront you about something that you've said that feels insensitive as an ally to someone else, you'll throw it right back at me, and then we'll get in this who's right, who's wrong kind of thing. Or I'll be seen as insincere. I really want to try. I'm not sure how to say it right. And maybe they'll even think, oh, well, because racism is a big deal right now, you're just stepping in because it is. And when we stop talking about it, you'll go back to how things were. All of these things can show up in our mental model of why we don't speak up, why we don't offer ourselves as a bridge. Or the big one, I'll feel shame, blame, or guilt. If I open up and ask you as a racialized person what your experience is, or if I say something and you tell me that doesn't work for you, I go into my shame and my guilt, and it's a horrible place to be. Nobody wants to feel that. And a lot of times, this is one of the things that keeps us from taking that step. So how do we flip the model? We want to speak to relationship. Relationship is the bridge. We're not talking about relating concept to concept. We're talking about relating people to people. And so we want to, instead of worrying about how to say it, we want to focus on building a relationship. Really, really important. We don't have to do it right. Silence is complicity. You've probably heard this a lot. I can welcome feelings, my own and others. If I feel shame, blame, guilt, sadness, anger, I can accept those and not make somebody else responsible for them. I can also hear, if I'm asking a racialized person about their experience and they're experiencing pain, I can hear those feelings. I can be present there. And I can say, oops, ouch, or pause. I have a language that I can use, and we'll talk a little bit more about that language in case it's not familiar to all of you. So these are ways that we can start to shift our mental model. So as I mentioned, relationship is a communication bridge between people. And the beams that connect across are about our listening and the way that we speak. So we want to listen from a place of trying to understand, not to judge who's right or who's wrong or what's good or what's bad, but to really, a bridge has to have continuity. It's not just one piece. And you can see these two people are working to build a bridge of understanding. I like to say, assume the position. The position is one of cultural humility. I can't say what your experience is, but I'm willing to listen and I want to understand. I can't say that my culture, my dominant culture, has all of the right answers and this is the way it should be. I want to be humble and listen and hear your experience and try to gain more understanding. And in the process, accept that you may have feelings about it. A lot of times as allies, one of our fears is people will be angry. Well, yeah, people will be angry. And people need a place to express that anger and be heard and not be made wrong because they're feeling angry or upset or sad or whatever other feelings are coming up. Okay, so foundation for the conversation. So we've got beams of relationship. We need a foundation to shore up our bridge. And oops and ouch, if you're not familiar with this, I encourage you to look it up. But it's a simple way. Oops, I said something that didn't come out the way I wanted to, and I want to catch it. I want to acknowledge it myself. I take responsibility for what I said. And ouch is a way to start naming something that was hurtful. It's a first step in a conversation. Ouch, when you said that about this person or that group of people, or you emphasized that stereotype, that landed painfully for me. Can we have a conversation about it? Okay, so 2 simple ways that we can introduce language that helps us begin to set a foundation for the conversation. The other thing you've probably heard a lot about is the importance of impact versus intention. And I love this little cartoon because often it's like, well, you know, I didn't mean to hurt you. I had a good intention here. But the issue is the person is still hurt. So pay more attention to the impact than the intention. And often, especially when we're nervous about stepping into a place we haven't been before or we're not familiar with, we want to lead by telling people what the intention is. Well, you know, I really, and we justify and justify and justify, and we don't listen. So again, back to the listening to understand the impact rather than having to justify our intention. Really important parts in building the conversation. The last thing that I want to talk about is the art of the preface, setting a context for the conversation so that as we're going across a bridge that we've built, we actually know how to dialogue with each other. And it could be something like, I have something sensitive to talk about, or I'm really not sure I have all of the words to do this right, but I want to try. Can we try this conversation together? And checking in, is this a good time to even have the conversation? If not, let's talk about when. And many of you are probably aware that people who are at the effect of racism in our country right now are being asked a lot. Tell me your experience. How is it for you? And sometimes we may not want to talk about it. That has to be okay. It really has to be okay. And then maybe you need to go do a little bit more studying or talk to some other people or whatever you need to help you keep moving forward in your bridge building process. But really having the space where a conversation is mutually agreed upon. And then as you introduce the conversation, state your feelings and invite the listener to be your partner. Okay, so this gives some ideas, some context, some how do we have the conversation? What are the pillars of support for a bridge? And now the question is, how are you called to be a bridge builder? It takes, the simplest thing in building a bridge is it takes 2 supports and a beam that goes across. And you'll notice I particularly like this image because you notice there's lots of different ways that people are showing up in this bridge. There's people who are actually holding for others to be able to go across. There are people who are using themselves across the center to actually hold up the center of the bridge. Then there are people who are on the bridge and they're the negotiators. They're the ones having the conversation. And you'll notice where we're starting from is the people on either side, they're still not really convinced. They're not really sure, but they're seeing other people. So how are you called? Who are you to be? Maybe you're a voice for those who haven't been heard. Maybe you're the one who goes from your side of the bridge to the other side and spends time there. You immerse yourself, you reside among. Maybe you're the bridge between different perspectives. One of the other bridges I had to build was between being a psychologist and an engineer. I actually worked on a project in an engineering school where I had to learn, understand, and be able to speak engineering language. in order to bring my psychological concepts to bear to help the people in the situation. Maybe you're a bridge between you and one other person. One heart at a time is often what we say in our spiritual tradition. And maybe your bridge building starts with your own self, fortifying your understanding, learning, studying. And maybe you're doing a combination of these things. So the question is, who are you as a bridge builder? And I really want to emphasize, who are you being? Not so much what are you doing, because I really believe our doing, our action comes from within, from our being. So I'd love to open it up for discussion. Who are you to be? How are you? Or what's your intention in building bridges?
Dr. Cosey, hi, welcome. This is Lane. I can start that conversation for sure. So first of all, thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation. It presented a lot of clarity in the conversation and a lot of different facets. One of the things that people who have been with us before, our group of regulars, know that Eugene and I started this because this was our way to try to build a bridge between, people and expand the conversation in a way that people could hear it and feel comfortable interacting. Mm-hmm. I think one of the hardest things to do is to create a safe space where people feel comfortable interacting.
Yes.
So I love the concept of what you're saying. And I know that there are people who have asked the question, gee, there are people that I know who hold different views than I do, and I'd love to invite them here, or I'd like to engage them in conversation. People who have said, I have friends who are police officers, and I really want to engage them in the conversation about how they feel about the concept of over-policing. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that's not the question you asked. Do you have something, and I know this is not a short thing, but what suggestions would you have for somebody who wants to invite somebody like that? Now, I got it. The art of the preface, it's awesome. Is that pretty much what you would say to follow?
That's the starting place. And often when people are invited into really sensitive conversations, they come in tentatively, not knowing what you really want. Like, where are we going with this? Are you just asking me to spill my guts and gonna kind of walk away and leave me with my guts hanging out? To be kind of blank about it. Or are we trying to solve a problem? So the art of the preface sets an intention that can allow the person to really be a choice about how they engage in the conversation, rather than trying to figure it out as I go along. Well, are you just doing this to satisfy your liberal need, or your spiritual need, or your white-based need, or whatever we make up? We make up stories. When we don't have complete information, we fill in the blanks. And so give people more information up front. I would love to see how we could come together on a human level to talk about the pains on both sides of this. And I'd love to hear from you first. How would that be for you?
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for that answer. No, it's great. Thank you for that answer.
Yes. Did I see another hand? Yes. It says Mary, but I see your hand. Yes.
Well, as I listen to you, something comes into my mind that I've always questioned. There's been a lot said about microaggressions. Books have been written about microaggressions. And sometimes, since very few microaggressions bother me, I have to wait for the macroaggressions really to really get annoyed at them. And I sometimes wonder if this sensitivity to what we call microaggressions really terminate conversations and terminate communication right at the start. If you accuse somebody of including microaggressions in their conversation, so how, in terms of establishing conversations across cultures and or between across just individuals, should we be picking apart their conversations in terms of what we sense as a microaggression? And you don't know whether it is really aggression or not. It may be just ignorance, or it may be because you're dumb. I don't know. So there we are.
I can really, really hear and align with what you're saying. And I will say, for people who have experienced what we now call microaggressions over and over and over and over throughout our lifetimes, after a while, we have to build a shield where those just don't get in. And I'm also one of those people. You have to slap me in the face with racism for me to go, oh, yeah, you're talking about me. Oops. And my theory and my experience is when we can address something when it's small, it's easier to have conversation around it. If I start to tell you what you did to me just launched me into my full history of everything that's ever happened to me and why what you did is wrong, it does shut down conversation. Because as you're listening, you're going, I can't fix that. I don't even know where to start with that. If I tell you what you just said to me right now was an ouch for me, we can talk about right now. And if you listen, you can ask me, please tell me how what I said or what I did was painful for you. I really want to learn from it. That is now an opening to a conversation rather than a shutdown of a conversation. Thank you. Yes, Leah?
Leah?
Can you just ask that question you posed in the beginning of us answering? Because it kind of slipped out of my mind. So, but I liked the question and I wanted to respond to it. Can you re-ask that?
How and who are you to be a bridge builder? And, you know, I gave several different examples. Maybe you're the person who reaches out to one other person. Maybe you consider yourself an ally for a particular group of people. Maybe you're the one who's going to go do study and from that study get a deeper understanding for yourself around white supremacy or racism or intersectionality or multicultural communication, you know, any of those kind of things.
And would you, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, the reason that I emphasize being is because we're talking about, for the most part, building bridges that haven't existed before. And we don't know how to do that. We don't know the exact science of every single bridge. We don't know when I make this effort if it's going to actually work. So it takes courage. And to me, that courage comes from our being. There's something inside of us that says, I'm the one. I'm the one. And I believe each of us has a space in which you're the one. Is that
Go
helpful?
ahead, Leah.
Leah?
I think just the fact that we're all here and this just kind of feels so new and like such a Herculean feat to a lot of us, it just reinforces how it is so needed, and it's so pathetic that this country is in such a state that this is so hard for even, liberal, open-minded people like us, I assume. But so putting it like that, building bridges just clarifies it a lot for me and just feels so simple. I don't know what else to say, but I think it's really important. And, just us being here is trying to build a bridge. And, I just want it to be a solved problem. So thank you for speaking to us. And I also kind of feel guilty that we have to impose upon you because you're Black, and we're like dumb white people that need guidance. And I don't know, I just feel pathetic and embarrassed to be American right now. But I'm trying. That's all I can say. Okay, thank you.
And that's one of the most important aspects of building a bridge is intention. It's showing up.
Thank
And
you.
I'm so grateful to Eugene and Lane for creating this safe space where we can struggle with it. We're not alone. If you notice, there was nobody in that bridge building, in that bridge, that was doing it by themselves. And in fact, the people who were making the arc across really depended on each other to be able to hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that this conversation is one that lets us see that even the smallest, tiniest intention and effort makes a difference when we do it together.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Joe has a comment, and then Ingram Taylor, you'll go after Joe.
Thank you, Eugene. First, Dr. Cosey, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Your presentation was excellent. I found that metaphor of a bridge was so helpful for me, and I was struck with the side comment about the foundation and why it's important to have a foundation in place before you start. There's some work that needs to be done, because I think one of the aspects of white privilege is that we just expect we the white people, we expect to be comfortable. We expect this whole journey over the bridge to be safe and comfortable for us. And so we probably might be inclined to just charge out there, and we'll be a little anxious, but we expect to be treated okay. And we expect the bridge to be safe for us. So we charge out there, engage this conversation, when maybe we would have been better served if we took some time and we did some of the work and did some reading and did some research and participate in a workshop and reach out and find a coach perhaps that could maybe talk to us a little more. But this notion that we just dive right in without taking the time to do that work ourselves, to take the time to read a couple books or watch a video, I think is a lost opportunity. So thanks again for I'm going to use this bridge metaphor for a long, long time. I find it very, very helpful. And without you being here to introduce it, I'd have one less thing that would make me feel comfortable in going over the bridge. The only other comment I would add is I take this journeying and having these tough conversations. To me, it's like I'm a sports guy. It's like the coach asking you to come off the bench. You're going in, Joe. You're going to go out there and you have the chance of humiliating yourself on the basketball court or football field. And I would turn to the coach and say, Coach, do you have any more advice? And this is the whole notion of finding a coach or finding other ways to do the work, prepare for that moment, and not just go in and expect to be treated okay just because you've always been treated okay for your entire life.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate those comments. And I want to say this is work for all of us. And I know that there are still things that I need to learn, that I don't understand, that I don't have the answers to, that I feel awkward. Yes, as a Black woman, I have experience as a Black woman, but that doesn't mean that I understand the experience of every other Black person or every other person of color. And I am constantly learning. And I believe that this is true and it's available for all of us. So thank you for making that point.
Thank you. Ingram and then Robin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lane and Eugene, once again. And Dr. Cosey, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I can relate to many things that you just said to me, because recently, if you really knew me, if anybody here, I've lived in my community for 58 years, and it's an all-white community. So I have seen the changes, and now it's less of us. And recently, a group within our community who's relatively new but want to try to have this courageous talk reached out to me. Somebody gave them my name, knowing that I've lived here for a long time, and they wanted me to become a part of their group, which is like 5 very nice professional Caucasian women. One is on this call, who is the founder of the organization, and we have now started that bridge. So I want to thank you for sharing this information, because I, for one, can see we're going in the right direction. I'm happy now that I joined this group of women. My first 2 calls with them, if she chooses to speak after me, I was listening. So that listening aspect is a very important point. I have become a better listener, which is a good thing. And once they asked me questions so that they wouldn't feel so like the oops, ouch phase that you're saying, and I responded, it was like, it was like an aha moment, you know? So I wanted this person that's on the call to know that I am very honored now to be with their group. We've only had like 7 calls, but we are building that bridge. I love that concept of the photo that you had of the bridge and people under the supporting the bridge. Because now I feel that I am like I'm the mental model shift for this group. Okay. But I'm proud of them living in this community all this time to come forth, because they're not right there yet. They're really little oops, ouch with the conversation, but I know they'll get there. So I want to use it with some young people too, but I really thank you so much for this presentation, Lane and Eugene, once again. and Dr. Cosey, thank you so much, and we're gonna use this.
Thank you.
We have Robin, and then after Robin, we have Anne. And then I see Karen has her hand up.
Hi there. I wanted to kind of speak to the question that Felicia posed about being and,
Yes.
and what it feels like to be part of the bridge. I think I felt a lot of urgency recently, and a lot of anger. I have spent a better part of my career in the abortion rights and reproductive health access world. So that's kind of been the foundation in gender studies and sexuality of my activism. And I've just noticed I've had a really hard time being gentle and slow with people in my community. I'm a cisgendered heterosexual white woman who has economic privilege, and I'm surrounded by a lot of really white liberal people living in the Bay Area. So there's a lot of really good intentions, but not a lot of follow through. And I'm like really struggling with it, feeling, you know, like I want to yell at them, which is not effective. And I don't yell at them, but there's a lot of internal anger. So I appreciate the bridge analogy a lot, because I hadn't thought about it like that before. And like a bridge has to be really strong and stable. So like, how do I do my internal work, continue to do that, and just kind of gently reach out to people? And that's what I've been doing, I think, a lot lately. I've noticed in thinking about what I've been doing, it's like I bring people along, like I send them resources, I start conversations, I interrupt conversations. I use a lot of the techniques I've learned in the high community through Felicia and other facilitators. And it just helps a lot to know and see all these other faces here and know that like people want to be doing this work, because sometimes it feels like if I'm the only one being disruptive, and that's like been my role in my family a lot, is making a lot of noise and making people uncomfortable, it tends to get exhausting and feel like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I'm just upsetting people or making them uncomfortable. So I just wanted to say that it's really difficult and I'm trying, but I'm just really grateful. So thank you for the analogy, so I can better kind of understand my role and like what works and how I can continue to build my foundation and then support other people by bringing them along in seemingly small ways, but it does add up. It's like that one brick at a time to get them hopefully to a different place. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. And I just want to emphasize that anger can only occur when there's passion underneath.
Right.
We don't get angry about things we don't care about. And so for all of us to recognize if anger is showing up, it's a sign that there's a passion underneath that needs expression. And I also want to remind you that no bridge is built with one person holding everything up. And to find, like we're doing right here, other people who are also doing their part and who can support you as you're building support for other people is really, really important at a time like this. Thank you, Robin.
So I know that Anne is next. Dr. Felicia, thank you for saying that. And I want to speak a little bit more to, because the question is, who are we to be in building the bridge? And my brother Tyrone Cosey and I were speaking about being and doing yesterday. And one of the things that I've been talking about, for a while now, for me, the questions that we've been hearing is, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? What is ours to do? And for me, it turned out to be, who am I to be in this situation? Because once I'm clear in who I am being, now that informs what's mine to do, right? So if I'm being afraid, that's going to impact my action. So we want to be clear, who am I to be in building this bridge? Am I to be compassionate? Am I to be one who supports? Am I to be loving? Am I to be silent? Am I to be? So we want to be clear on who we are to be. Because again, once we are clear on who we are to be in building this bridge, that again informs the actions that we get to take, We don't have to take them, but we get to take them. I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you. Very, very well spoken, Eugene.
Thank you. Anne, and then after Anne, we have Karen.
Thank you, Eugene. You almost basically said what I was going to say, but I want to add that the leading with, if you really knew me, you would know. And that's so beautiful, because I really believe that when you are vulnerable, you create intimacy. And in my career as a public health nurse, I was able to build bridges. Now that I'm thinking about it, I had certain expertise that I could bring to groups, and I had to learn, because frequently I was the only white person in several situations that I worked with, and everyone always embraced me, and we always got to that level of sharing that intimacy, and I was so honored and graced to learn so much, you know. And I have family members who've only lived in white communities, they've only worked in white communities, and it was like, oh, if you knew the people I know, you wouldn't be having these biases. And anyway, so I really love the bridge building, because now I feel less overwhelmed, because I've been absorbing so much pain from, you know, just wanting to help, because I'm a helper. So just knowing that, okay, I can build bridges basically where I'm at and who I am is just, it's a really beautiful model. And I think that we're in this together, and that we can each play a role when we know our strengths and what we bring. And it's things that we've been doing our whole lives. So anyway, I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Karen Schatzel, and then we have Tyrone Cosey.
I'm sorry, did you say Karen?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Cosey, thank you so much, first of all, for all the help that you've provided today, because I've been making notes like mad, and right here in my community, we have a very contentious situation now about housing. And in any case, I now am thinking in a different way about how to approach this. I also would like to ask you, please, to speak a little louder for those of us who have very old ears, because I noticed that somebody else also said that it was hard to hear. So if you could speak up a little bit, that would be helpful. But my other question is, how does one create a situation where one can participate in bridge building? Because when it was mentioned earlier about trying to have a conversation with a police officer, and I have a police officer in a relationship who is a personal hero of mine because of the special needs of his family. But I could never bring this up in a casual way about discussing this with him. First of all, because I think he would feel very uncomfortable and inarticulate. But also here in this in our speaking up today, this is a very intentional situation. And how do we create a more intentional situation in other places in our lives? How can we do that among the people we know to make it more intentional?
You ask a very, very good question. And I wish I could wave a magic wand and give the perfect answer. And I think the key, if we go back to one of the first slides, relationship is the bridge. You already have a relationship with this person. And if you're asking the question out of curiosity for data collection's sake, that's not going to be very interesting, and you won't, but you care about this person. You care about how they feel and what's going on for them. And you can ask a question from that place. And remember, there's also the place of being willing to accept if they don't want to answer. And sometimes you can ask somebody, you know, tell me how you're feeling about this. And they go, no, I don't really want to talk about it. And if you say, that's fine, I totally understand. There's no pressure here. I just care about you. You might be surprised at what they come back with. So if you ask and their answer is no, and you receive the no, that's an experience many people have never had. Either I have to tell you because you have asked me and I want to know, or I've just got to go away and leave the relationship. And in the moment that you say, you know, I can hear this may be tough for you to talk about, and if you don't want to, I'm fine, and I want you to know that I care. That opens the door. They can choose whether to come in or not. None of this is easy. I'm not pretending that it is. It's not easy, and it's critical.
And it's critical.
It's critical. It's essential that we step out of our comfort zones right now and do what has to be done.
Yep.
And it won't be perfect, and we will make mistakes, and we'll keep loving ourselves and each other as we muddle our way through it, but it has to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. It's a really, really good one, Karen.
Thank you.
Brother Tyrone, you're up next, and then we have Shiloh, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lane.
First of all, kudos to Eugene and Lane for this phenomenal experience. It's my first time being on it, and
About time.
here to support my beautiful wife, but it's also to listen to how deep everyone is and how caring they are. So a couple thoughts and then a question. One is that someone said to me that there's power in vulnerability. And I think we've all had our political caps on for 4 years, probably had our Captain America shield up and, you know, and all that stuff to make it through the last 4 years. But the truth of the matter is now that's over, where do we go from here? How do we actually look at things? I've been enjoying being a political pundit to some extent. And then I realized, well, that's fun, but now that it's over, I got to look at me. I got to go deeper within me. You know, so the vulnerability is a key thing, I think, to coming from your heart. These are not political answers. These are heart-based answers. And to come from there is a whole different ball game. But the question I wanted to put out there is, so how do we now reach out to that 41% who voted for anyone other than voted for, for Trump? How do we reach out to them? Because that's the most important thing to me right now. If we're talking about bringing people together, then we have to start with one person at a time, I think, and reach out to them. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you for the question. And I do agree that vulnerability is actually a superpower, because it's in some ways it's disarming, and in other ways it's an invitation. If I'm walking around being strong in my position and you're walking around being strong in your position, there is no way for the two of us to come together. In the moment, I'm willing to say, I care about you and how you feel. I'm letting my guard down. I'm risking that I could get hurt in that process, but I'm also risking that you might also let yours down in a way that we can meet. And I'm a firm believer in both and rather than either or. Either I'm right or you're right. Either I'm the 41% or you're the 59%. There's a meeting place where we're all human and we all have feelings. It may be challenging, but what is it to have compassion for people who didn't vote for our president-elect? What does it take to actually listen to their pain or their anger or their frustration or their not understanding, even when we hold ideas that are very different from theirs? It's no different from people who have lived in all white worlds and all black worlds. There's this level of separation is equal. The ways of seeing the world are equally different. And some people will be able to do these bridges and not everyone will. But those who can, let's have the tools to do it. And they're the same tools. It's still listen to understand. It's still inviting and being willing to hear, no, I don't want to talk about it. it's still giving a preface. This is why I'm interested in your opinion or your reaction or your feeling. All of these same tools work regardless of what we're building the bridge between. So thank you, because that's a really current and right now kind of bridge that we need to be building.
Thank you. We'll take Shiloh, then once again, then I'll turn it over to Lane. Shiloh?
Hi, thank you. I have so much going on in my mind right now because I feel like I've been on the bridge, like holding and having somebody hold my feet for so long that my arms are really tired. And I'm really disappointed that 69 million people are really attached to white supremacy in the United States. And so I'm having this thing of like, I'm learning how to call people in instead of call them out. So one of my solutions as a doer and knowing myself is, okay, I'm going to have, because there's even 18% of people in the Bay Area who voted for him. They're here. And so they're everywhere. And I'm having a hard time finding the compassion and also finding the desire to be in relationship with people who are being selfish or benefiting and not wanting anything to change when other people are like going hungry and houseless for, like, especially in the Bay. So I'm having that go on, but then I'm thinking about this quote that always hits me from Cornel West, which is that justice is love in public. So how can I lean into that in all the messiness of it? And what does that look like? And so my idea right now is I want to start 1 week after Biden is sworn in, so the 27th of January, to start this like courageous conversation action and study group for white folks to like let's get in there and let's figure this out, because I think it is a yes and. We don't have to only learn and then do. We can learn and do simultaneously. We can't change what has already happened, but we can think about how we want to be now. So I guess that's what I was thinking to offer.
I love your intention and your energy. And I just want to encourage you to keep surrounding yourself by other people who can hold when your arms are tired. Because otherwise, all of that good passion and intention will get worn out. And that's, in my mind, it's why we're all here. You know, each of us, you know, sometime when your arms are tired, I can step in and hold, and you can go take a vacation, a break, and come back, and, you know, we can trade it off. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams Cosey. This has been amazing. And we'll have to have you back again because you've got a lot of fans here. And I don't know if you've been looking in the chat, but and people are also loving your presentation. I don't know if that's something you make available, and certainly you don't have to, but just let me know your feelings on that, and we'll of course talk offline.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. And I wanted to let people know that if you indeed registered for this session and I have your email, I will be sending the recording of this session. So you will have the full recording of this session. So you'll be able to view the slides again. Alrighty. I wanted to also say that next week, we will be visited by Mayo Bartlett Esquire, who is a civil rights attorney, and he's been in this racial justice game for quite a while. And he will be talking about the conversation about defunding the police. So answering questions, helping us to unpack that issue, and that issue has layers. So we're looking forward to that. Dr. Williams Cosey, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a member of our Race Talk family. It's really such a pleasure to have you here and to be a part of our family. So with that, we're going to sign this off. Dr. Cosey, any last words from you, please?
I just want to encourage everybody to be encouraged. You know that anything that you do makes a difference. Small steps are enough. Thank you. And together,
That's a wonderful
we make it
sentiment.
happen. Yes.
Yeah. So being here today, a small step or a large step, depending on who you are, we are so grateful. We would not be here if not for you all. And so from me and Eugene, namaste. See you next week. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams Cosey.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.